Now, with that short theory lecture out of the way, let's go back to working on our components here. On the users list component, there is a little adjustment I want to make, which I forgot before. On that output here, if we find no users, there I also want to use the card component. So I'll import card from shared components, UI elements, card. And I will use the card in here to wrap the h2 tag with it. Just like this. This will then look a bit nicer if we have to render it. By the way, if you wonder how I organize my imports, I have third-party library imports always at the top, then an empty line, and then my own file imports where I tend to have the CSS import at the very bottom. Technically, that does not make a difference. It's just how I like to organize my imports. And with that, we have this adjusted. Now let's build a brand new component from scratch. Because at the moment, this looks okay, but one important thing that is missing is a header, for example, a main navigation bar at the top that ensures that we can actually also reach other parts of our application. For example, at the moment, we can view our list of users, we can click the users, and at the moment nothing happens, but we can change this. But what we definitely can't do from inside the application is go to the new places route. I have to manually enter places new. And of course, that's not a pleasant user experience. We don't want to force our users to guess which URLs they can enter. So instead, it would be nice to have a navigation at the top where you have a button that takes you to the new places page. And that's exactly what we'll work on now. For this, I'll go to the shared folder because the navigation isn't really exclusive to one of our pages. It's shared instead. And there, next to UI elements, I'll add a navigation folder, which should hold all the components that are involved in the navigation menu process. Specifically in there, I want to have a main header component stored in a main header JS file. And I will have a main header CSS file for the styling. I want to have a main navigation JS file, which will be part of the header. You can say the header will be the shell, which provides the styling. The main navigation component later will be the component that has all the links. And I will also need some CSS for that. I also want to have a nav links JS file. That will actually be the collection of links which we render in main navigation. And therefore, I will have a nav links CSS file. And also a site drawer JS file, because this app also should work nicely on mobile screens, and there we will need that site drawer. So a lot of components we have to work on. Let's start with the main header. The main header is pretty straightforward. We import React from React, and then we import main header CSS for the styling. We have no styling in there yet, but that will follow. And then here we have main header as a component where we receive some props and then return some JSX later, and we'll export that main header component from this file so that we can use it in other files. Now, regarding the JSX, I want to have the normal header element being rendered here, and I'll add a class name to that header element, which is main-header, and that will later be picked up by the styling in the main header CSS files. Now, what should be rendered between the opening and closing tags? There, I want to be flexible, and I want to allow anything to be rendered in there. Any HTML components, any custom components, anything should be renderable in there. So we can use a dynamic expression and now a special prop, props.children. This is one of the very few special props React knows. Props children will always refer to the things you pass between your opening and closing tags of your component. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's go to the place where I intend on using main header, and that's the main navigation. In there, we can import React from React, and then create main navigation, where we also might receive props, and then export main navigation. Also, don't forget to import main navigation.css so that we have the styles, which we'll later add available. And now in here, in main navigation, I want to return my main header. So I'll import main header, which we just created, from the main header file. Then we can render it like this. And now between the opening and closing tags, we can insert what then in the end will end up here in place of props children. So in main navigation, we can now decide what should be rendered inside of our main header. And there I want to have a button, which will later open my side drawer. And in there I will have free spans, free empty spans simply as bars, because I will add some styling, which renders this as a hamburger icon. And every span will be one, well, part of the hamburger. We will add a class name here, which is main-navigation __ menu-button. Besides the button in the main header, I want to have a h1 tag with a class name of main-navigation __ title. And the text here could be your places or whatever the name of your app should be. And then I want to have a nav element. And in there, I want to have my nav links later. So for now, just 3 dots. These will be links later. The header here also should be clickable. So I'll import link from React Router DOM and wrap my text here with it. So here I'll have the link and then there to/nothing to always get us back to the main page when we click the title of the app. This is in the end my main navigation for the moment. And now really keep in mind that what I enter here between the opening and closing tags of main header will in the end be forwarded under the special children prop to main header and will therefore be output in that place here, in props children's place. So props children is a placeholder for the content you enter between the opening and closing tag of your own component, you could say. Well, and now, even though some things are missing, let's add styling and let's then render the main header. Now for the styling, again, you find attached a main navigation CSS file where you can just paste in the content into your main navigation file here or replace it. And the same for main header. Make sure you add all those styles I prepared for you. With that out of the way, we can go to the app.js file because the header should always be visible no matter which route you loaded. So I will not include it in every page, but instead render it above all my pages, above that switch statement here. So here I will import my main navigation from shared components, navigation, main navigation, and that will include the main header as you saw. And that should be rendered above my routes so that this is always visible no matter what we load as a page on the rest of the page below, well, our main navigation. So here inside of router, because I do use the link component from the router package, for example, but outside of my routes config, I will render main navigation as a self-closing tag because I don't need to pass anything between the opening and closing tags to it. I also don't need to pass any props to it. With that, if we save this, we have our header here. Now, this looks a bit strange because our place is below the header. Let's change that. Let's change it by wrapping our switch statement here with the main component. And now on the main component, I want to ensure that we keep some distance to our main header, to our main navigation. And that should already be happening because if you look into the main header file, into the main header CSS file I provided to you, I do add some margin to the main element. So now this looks better. And now we still have no navigation links here, but at least we have a header. And if we decrease the size here, you see the hamburger button goes away because it's already styled to adjust the layout based on the size we have available. On smaller screens, we do have the hamburger button. Right now, however, if we click it, nothing happens. So that's something we'll have to adjust. So here, let's go to the bigger screen where we have the desktop view. We now have to work on the different links here and then make sure we also add a side drawer that works on mobile screens.